All right. Good morning, YouTube. It's a great Tuesday looking out there, at least here. We're going to briefly hit the weather here. As you can see, there's rain pretty much. Michigan has disappeared under the rain. But, large swaths of rain running out there, south, Midwest, east. Stay dry if you're having to travel or do whatever else that you're going to be doing with that. So just a FYI on that. And Seattle, of course, it's raining. Well, maybe not in Seattle, but right there on the coast. Nothing new there. But hope everybody's doing good. You've had a return from Monday. I found all kinds of good stuff for this morning. So we'll move on from the weather here real quick, because I've got a whole host of things lined up that I don't think we're going to have time to get to. It seemed like a little bit of everything piqued my interest this morning. So where to start? There might be hope for California. I think I'll start there. Real quick, let's go out in the side chat, see what we got with us. We got Jay Grady. Good morning, sir. How are you? Sorry to hear about your channel. Come back anytime. Jay Grady put in a lot of work on covering the Bundy trials and the Hammonds and such. It was good stuff. 01 Crom is with us. Second, maybe, Crom. I don't think you were first. Was simultaneous, I guess. M. Long is with us out there in the rain. Walter Davis. Okay, now he's first, Jay Grady. I see you abdicated. But is there hope for California? So I've seen a couple of these stories now in the last week where localities within California are making anti-sanctuary state moves to resist the state madness of the sanctuary state mantra. So this is Orange County. There were other smaller localities. This is a large county, obviously. There were actually cities and towns that were putting in anti-sanctuary state memos or initiatives or referendums or statements from the city council or whatever. So this is 1 week after Los Alamitos had voted to defy the law that protects illegal immigrants. Essentially, California's law that does that. These places are resisting that. So today they may consider whether to take up a resolution to condemn and possibly take legal action against the state's sanctuary laws. This is Orange County. May consider this today. So as a statement by the Orange County supervisor, our officers actually face penalties under state law if they so much as talk to federal agents for this for illegal immigrants. That's a short story, but it goes on down. Ads always break up way too much of this. Other cities in the county, Yorba Linda, Buena Park, Huntington Beach, and Mission Viejo are also looking at taking action to voice grievances against the state's law. In Texas, more than a dozen other states have filed a brief in support of a lawsuit against California's laws. So a bunch of the states are getting on board and going after California. Interesting. So the angst is deep in California. I think Los Alamitos is up further north than Orange County. Am I correct? All those Los and Las and all the different ones always get confused on me. But I think Los Alamitos is in the Bay Area. But someone in California probably can tell us for sure. But people in California usually don't join us in here. They'll comment after the fact. That's a good article in your description box. Check it out. Goes down the history of some of that. Long history of some of the angst in California about illegal immigration. Both pros and cons. Something for your consideration. Where does that go back to? Yeah, okay. So if California has hope, I mean, or not, maybe it's just going to break up. That would be even better hope, actually. So moving right along, the Russian issue is continuing. More diplomats are being kicked out of countries. There was somebody joining this morning. Does it say in this article? So we expelled 60 Russians here. The British have expelled 23. Canada is expelling. France 4. Germany expelled 4 diplomats. Poland expelled 4. Italy, Spain, basically all EU. Lithuania, Czech Republic, Croatia, Netherlands, Denmark. It's a long list. Albania, Estonia, Finland expelled a diplomat. Ukraine is expelling 13 diplomats, which you'd think Ukraine would have done that a long time ago. And Australia is expelling 2 diplomats. And Australia has threatened to boycott the Soccer World Cup, which is going to get more news and more play out there. The world as a whole is more bound up in the World Cup. I would take that as a significant statement. U.S. boycotted it, but just not qualifying. So we were ahead of the game, I guess. So that continues with the back and forth diplomatically, maybe would be the way to say it. Using diplomatic measures, diplomacy, expelling diplomats, etc. A long-standing feud with the West and Russia, who won't go down easy, as you all know. There was also a related story over here about Russia and their gold on the zero hedge. They stockpile gold, but why? So it's a good article about why does Russia do this. So in here, Russia has amassed the 5th largest gold reserves, 1,828 tons. That's a few. It's a little bit of gold. That's how many pounds? Oof. 200,000 pounds plus. That's a few. You know, you think about an ounce of gold and then multiply by 16. You got a lot of ounces running around out there. There's our gold reserves have been increasing steadily over the last 4 years. On the chart, Russia and China are both working on speculation is that Russia and China are working on a gold-backed currency to shift power from the West. Which is the play you would want to make if you want to be independent of the oil currencies. But as they mentioned here, also more importantly, Russia is lowering their national debt while the U.S. has been increasing its debt to a record $21 trillion. So in this graph, Russia had its highest debt back in 2015, and it looks like 15.9. Is that in billions or trillions? And it's down to 12.6, significantly down. I would have a hard time imagining that being trillions. It's probably billions. Nobody rolls like we do when it comes to debt. Gold price performance chart. So something to look into. Why is Russia stockpiling gold and nobody else does in the West? All we do is stockpile debt and people. Interesting story. On the social front, something we've been following to follow up on here. Will Germany still belong to Germans in the near future? This is on the Zero Hedges as well. It's via Gefira. Let me go check out the side chat real quick. You guys looks like you're chatting up a little bit. Walter Davis joined us. Good morning. Walter says that, oh yeah, I saw that, Walter. The school district that was putting buckets of rocks in classrooms changed their mind. They're now putting armed officers. But yeah, they changed their mind on that after people just told them how ridiculous it was. Barry Wood has joined us. Good morning. Working on his exit plan if he lived in California, but fortunately he doesn't. Oh, Crom, is that right? Los Altos is south of LA? I always get confused. That's why I don't live there. As well as you, it looks like. All right, have a good morning, Jay Grady. Crom, what evidence are you speaking of? You said zero evidence given. All right, moving on to this story about the Germans. Will it belong to the Germans? I think the answers would be probably they're probably not. It's like anything like the U.S. Talking about German population growth, and obviously the birth rate is one of those issues, but says that the German Bureau of Statistics, they basically say that by 2060, with zero net immigration, the German population will have declined to 60.2 million. They even consider that to be optimistic here in the paper research. They estimate in 40 years, Germany will have a population of 52.6 million, a considerable 34% drop from the current 81 million inhabitants. And by the end of the century, the native German population, the indigenous without a migration background, will have shrunk even further and be approaching 21.6 million. Y'all just might as well leave. Just leave now and leave it to the invaders, because you ain't going to be able to, unless you do a serious resistance, and that it doesn't look like it's on the cards. German elites want to maintain population around 80 million. They go on to talk about the relationship between the future Germany and the Germany of the past. There'll be essentially no correlation historically or demographically, traditional, cultural, or otherwise. It makes sense. Much of the West is repeating the same mistake. It will be interesting to see how the trend continues. Here's the stat. In Germany, an average woman gives birth to 1.4 children. That is below the replacement fertility level and has not changed much since 1970s. This is why the German population is shrinking. The trend has been reversed due to the 1.3 million non-EU immigrants who have arrived in the country since 2015. And then basically their birth rate is around 3.5 or something insane like that. To maintain your population, you need a birth rate of about 2.2. So there's that. But make sure you go out and break that glass ceiling and set records and stuff. So talking about more studies and more graphs and charts, something to look at. It's in the description box below if you want to get more into the numbers. And there's links in here as well. It links you over to the article, other articles and research going into it. And by the end of the century, they expect there to be 22 million Germans left, if you would be able to call them Germans, because they'll probably change the name of the country by then. And they finally close with, the results of the Service 2.0 show us that the discussion about migration is not about accepting and protecting the right of minorities. Rather, it is about an existential question. It is about the preservation of the Germans. There we go. So again, that is in your description box. Distressing information and an example of the rest of the West is following, essentially. And Zero Hedge, just to put you on another article they got, I won't get too much into it because most of y'all know this already, but it is maybe for your reading pleasure. Enough is enough. If you really want to save lives, take aim at government violence, and that is in your description box as well. And that is via the Rutherford Institute to that article. We talked about sanctuary states in California. We're about halfway through. There was the other article in CNBC about Russian diplomats being expelled. Or did I? This is the one I already looked. That's the one I already looked at. Yeah. On your Second Amendment front, to go along with the protest and all the other political action, the banks have been acting. Citigroup made a statement about limiting sales through their banks. Two new ideas on how banks can limit gun sales. Just what we need. This is via the New York Times. Our good friends over there, right? And this was posted this morning about 3 hours ago. Talking about the touchy-feely protest. Citigroup's statement to limit gun sales. Other companies' actions. We talked about the BlackRock Investment Group, Dick's Sporting Goods. We've talked about that in the past. Just to clarify, Citi's statement was it would require retailers to place restrictions on the sale of guns to anyone under the age of 21. Stop selling bump stocks and high-capacity magazines and perform background checks. Sounds like a good time to get in the bank business and fund retailers and FFLs, and have your own bank card and bank credit card and stuff, some sort of debit card. Maybe use a cryptocurrency while you're at it. Otherwise, moving on to the story. Otherwise, Citibank said it would not do business with them. That being the retailers that don't in place those restrictions and guarantee Citi those safeguards, I guess you would say. JP Morgan Chase and the Bank of America have created formal working groups to consider the issue, as have the big credit card companies, Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. The bank that's least receptive appears to be Wells Fargo, which it says Wells Fargo stated it should be done through the political and legislative process. Wells Fargo is the largest financier in the nation of the gun industry and is the main bank for the National Rifle Association. Well, there you go. That makes sense. You got to protect your home port, right? And this will be further down in the description box. This article goes down further quite a ways. Talking a lot about limiting who they do business with as far as Citi's decision and how other banks can do the same. They're saying they don't limit their consumers. If you have a card of theirs, it doesn't limit you, but it limits the people that they do business with. So going after guns at the source with financial warfare, I guess you could say. What we got going on the side chat? Tommy Boy Nine's with us. Good morning, sir. Says Debbie Wasserman Schultz wants background checks on ammo. We briefly saw that yesterday. I didn't see it this morning, but yeah, that has been floated out there yesterday. We can dig into that as well. I want to look into that. But along that same issue, coming out of the New York Times, an opinion piece by John Paul Stevens about repeal of the Second Amendment. So you got to know what your enemy is thinking. So obviously he starts off here talking about the feel-good movements of the children's here, and the civic engagement, as he calls it, in the demonstrations in Washington. That support is a clear sign to lawmakers to enact legislation, he says, prohibiting civilian ownership of semi-automatic weapons. Oh, man. Come get somebody. You make blanket statements like that, not even knowing what he's talking about. Prohibiting civilian ownership of semi-automatic weapons, which is pretty much anything manufactured since the 60s, other than your bolt-action rifle. Goodness. Actually, technically, is a bolt-action still semi-automatic if it's got a magazine? I guess maybe not, by definition, but increasing the minimum age to buy a gun from 18 to 21 and establishing there would be no guns to buy if they're not semi-auto, and establishing more comprehensive background checks on all purchases of firearms. They already have that. Yeah. But the demonstrators should seek more effective and more lasting reform. They should demand a repeal of the Second Amendment. Of course, they're going full hog, no pun intended, to Mr. Hogg. Concern that a national standing army might pose a threat to the security of the separate states led to the adoption of the amendment. True. Today, that concern is a relic of the 18th century. False. It actually is more true now because the standing army is represented in your everyday, what is called a peace officer or police officer is now the new standing army. And the other various federal agencies that compose the standing army now. For over 200, this guy just goes all in on the not needing the Second Amendment because it's old and antiquated and it has no use. As Mule would say, join up, team up, train up. If you don't know who John Paul Stevens is, he's a former justice on the Supreme Court. So he throws around a lot of weight out there. Talks about the Heller decision and the individual right to bear arms. He doesn't believe it was just. And it's not a very long opinion article. He's straight to the point. Repeal, repeal, repeal. Ban, ban, ban. As most of us know, that's the way they think. So I wouldn't say it's new, but it is significant at the level it's being presented at. Go back out in the side chat here. You guys are catching up on the immigration talk. Nullifying federal laws. Yeah, it'd be nice, wouldn't it, Crom? They don't have the cojones to nullify. Nullification is seen as a wayward time of the 1960s, or 1860s, I should say. Nobody believes in nullification anymore, except for the few states that still practice it in certain ways. Like Arizona with daylight savings time or with road speed limits, etc. Holidays. All right, so there's your feel-good Second Amendment article for the day, I guess you'd say. Again, in the description box below. I got a couple others here, and we will move on. Let me see real quick if I can find that about Wasserman Schultz wanting to do attacks on ammo. I don't think it was on the initial drive by this morning, but you can find it out there if you look for it. But going along with that, this actually came out in Nevada yesterday. They're talking about Ryan resigning as a House Speaker, and he would be replaced. And of course, zero. He may resign as a House Speaker and be replaced. And this was in an interview yesterday with our representative out here. What this would do for any type of legislation getting pushed through, any of these issues that we're talking about, like repealing the Second Amendment, is unclear. But in the next 30 to 60 days, Ryan is expected to resign based on this statement. And the article just kind of touches on the possible replacement of Scalise from Louisiana. And he's the current whip. So not that it would change drastically, but Ryan is a known collaborator and two-faced individual, considering how he got elected and how he runs the show now. Just something to keep on your radar, especially with budgets coming up again here in the fall. Other international things we've been following, the Catalonia situation pumped back up in the news. The Germans arrested Puigdemont, who is the Catalonian separatist leader, I guess, to put it in modern parlance, the leader of the resistance there. And that caused a large amount of rioting in Catalonia over the weekend, I believe, primarily. This was on Sunday after he was arrested, so maybe he was arrested Saturday. 89 people injured. A large number of people taken into custody during the protest. Let's see what the video says if I can get through this ad. That does not look like the future of driving. That looks miserable. See my last video. Okay, not driving a Nissan Energy car. All right, so kind of your typical protest, it looks like. All right, so that's the situation in Catalonia, as it kind of broke down that the guy, Puigdemont, had traveled outside of Belgium, where he's been in exile, awaiting resolution in Spain, and got arrested coming back from a speech in Finland. So that's something to look into. Remember, the biggest thing is Catalonia is the largest economic zone in Spain, which is also one of the few places outside Germany that produces anything other than debt and sucks up welfare. So Spain does not want to let that go. Catalonia wants to go. And, you know, in all respects, you got to remember Catalonia wants to be more socialist in a lot of respects than Spain, because they want to give away a lot of freebies and welfare. But say let them go, because it's better to burn separately than together. So that article's in your description box, and there's also another one from the Washington Post I'll link to, which talks about a little bit about the protest. No video, I don't believe, and it just discusses. It's a much shorter article, not nearly as detailed about the situation. Doesn't even mention the casualties, it doesn't look like. Just talks about the roads being blocked, and I think this is going into today. They're still blocking highways and protesting 3 days later, essentially. So all is not well in the plane in Spain. So we're wrapping it up here, coming to the end. Good morning, Mule Team. What's up? This chat seems to have slowed down here towards the end. Crom says, "Get your lever actions and revolvers." Oh no, I'm not. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it, as they would say. All right, looks like we stopped with those comments. Walter euphemistically wonders if there's a market for kit guns you assemble, no hassles. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's out there. Pretty easy to go pick yourself 80% or other type of lower and start building. Was it a good day of work, Mule? Survived at least. I guess that's the most thing. I'm assuming you're at home. You're not driving from work, right? No driving and texting and watching the chat. And one final story discussing the Africa situation. We've been kind of watching all the European powers get back into Africa, and that's what this article is about. It's an opinion article. It's in Al Jazeera. Superpowers are once again competing for influence in Africa. Indeed, it's time for the continent to reclaim its sovereignty. Easier said than done when everybody's got their hands in there and all the, obviously, resources. So this will be some good light reading for you. It's a pretty long article. It goes into the different issues, economic and otherwise, hits the big players, US, Russia, China, how to respond, his message to Africans to reclaim their sovereignty, which you would have to support that. So he closes with, most importantly, African masses, civil society, youth, and women groups should play a leading role in Africa's relations with the world. The era of gatekeepers must end. It is natural and vital that Africans engage with the world directly. It's going to be a tough go. So that's be an interesting article if you wanted to follow up on some international stuff and us getting our fingers all over the place out there in the world. All right, folks, I'm about ready to wrap it up. You guys got anything else you want to discuss, look into? There seemed to be quite a bit out there today that directly ties to a lot of the things we've been talking about over the week. So I wanted to get through it all. Remember, there are links below for you to look at directly. Walter Davis, who is Childers? You say Childers is working in the Sudan. Who is Childers? Not familiar with that name. Yeah, I feel you, Mule. Is any day of work anything more than okay? It's usually okay or worse, right? I guess it's a good day as long as you don't use the AK. So watch out for the gun grabbers. They're coming. They're out there in full force, full on confiscation mode. Turn them in. Let me get this one out there. They do not want you to be happy with your firearm sitting in your house, feeling safe. They want you to be in a state of despair like they are because they feel helpless because they don't want to defend themselves. I don't think I put those Catalonian links in yet. I have to get those. All right, just transferring some links over to get it set up. Make sure you got as much in there as possible. You can cram a lot into the description box. And the California Sanctuary story is the top one on Drudge. So it's not getting buried necessarily. There's another story right below that at the headline, Orange County Sheriff makes public inmates release dates. So that would mean those that are illegal, I guess, or... So as of Monday, an existing Who's in Jail online database includes the date and time of inmates release. So that's its communication with law enforcement partners. So I guess if ICE has people on their list that are getting out of jail, they can be there to pick them up. It's kind of the intuition there. So just a way to get around the law type of thing with their partners. So anyway, yeah, I'm over time, people. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoy your Tuesday. We will see you back tomorrow. Live free.